Donaldson, do you want to go ahead?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bromford and Hodge Hill online ward forum meeting of Monday, the 19th of April, 2021. The theme of this evening's meeting is going to be around the Commonwealth Games 2022, celebrating Communities Fund, and we're going to have a discussion around that. I'd just like to advise participants that this meeting is being recorded live stream, and a record will be kept for future availability. Okay, so what we'll do, we've got the presentation, we've got a few slides to show you, and then we'll open it up for questions and discussions. So if everybody could, if people want to ask questions, if they can either raise their hand or put a note in the chat, and then we'll take it in order. Right, Bromford and Hodge Hill Ward has been awarded £35,000 in the Celebrating Small Communities Grants Fund. So that's going to be available in 2 tranches over the next year, with the first tranche going out this year and the second tranche going out next year. So the main objective is it's around getting ready for the Commonwealth Games, getting the ward ready, different initiatives. So basically what we'd like to hear is your ideas, what you have in mind, and open it up to the floor for suggestions. So so the closing date for the first tranche is going to be on the 1st of June, and then we'll have meetings in July, between July and September, ward forum meetings, when we can see what applications have been put forward, and we can discuss them further and vote on them to see, what we want, what as a community we'd like to see happen. The main themes are active mobility, so I've lost the
Sorry.
We go on to the next slide, sorry, because I was reading off that slide. So active mobility to provide opportunities for increasing activity through walking and cycling. And that will be up because we've got, by then we should have the cycle route around Bromford up and running. So other activities, community games and sports days. So bringing the community together to celebrate sports and arts, Commonwealth Games themed sports days. We could have flags, bunting, that sort of thing throughout the ward. And active streets and parks. So games ready, deliver community volunteer projects to get local areas games ready. So we've got examples of clean streets, planting Commonwealth themed flower displays, Commonwealth flags, bunting, memorabilia in the local area, celebrating communities and having fun, which would probably maybe for the second tranche when we're nearer to the games, which will take place at the end of July 2022. Pat, you're going very fast with the slides. We would like to see community-led culture events, initiatives, and events and projects should encourage integrated activities that focus on Birmingham's place in the Commonwealth, the stories of Birmingham and its residents, many who are from the Commonwealth, unheard stories in Birmingham. So there's a lot of scope here to be imaginative, engagement between communities and a place of identity, and increased pride in being a Brummie, and sharing stories and experiences of all communities, because we're all essentially Brummies, so share our experiences. Yeah, can we move on to the next slide? That's it, yeah. So how will successful applications be decided? So all the applications must be compiled and approved by the ward forum. So all the applications we will bring to the ward forum, and we can vote as a collective. We can all look at the proposals and then vote on the proposals that are being put forward. So we envisage the first ward forum being in between July and September of this year for the first tranche. And then round two, which the applications close on October of this year, but then the ward forum to decide those will be held in February and March of next year. And confirmation letters will go out in September of this year and March of next year. So the projects, we envisage the first projects commencing in October of this year, and the second round projects starting in April of next year, in time for the game. So more of a celebratory theme, hopefully around those. So I'm going to open it up now if anybody would like to ask questions or has any ideas. So if anybody wants to ask questions, feel free to raise your hand or just put in the chat that you'd like to ask a question. And if anybody's got any wonderful ideas.
Can't see you've got a hand up.
Ah, Khalid. Hi, Khalid.
Hi, Diane. You okay?
I'm fine, thanks. You?
Yeah, thank you for the briefing today. Sorry I was a bit late.
That's okay. Okay. So I hope you got the gist of it.
Yeah, I did read on some of the information that you sent to me previously on it as well. And I know there's a breakdown of different categories. I did kind of think we did fit in one of the categories. I can't remember off the top of my head which one now. I was going to call you about it, but I'm going to have to sort of have a look and call you back because I've just been at work all day and I can't remember. I saw that information you sent me last week. Could we, just one question, could we do a collaboration with another organization as part of the project?
Is the organisation in the ward?
Yeah, in the ward, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's possible.
Okay.
Okay. What sort of projects were you looking at in particular?
I can't remember on top of my head, Dan, because I've got about 6-7 bidding applications on my desk, and I know the ones that you sent. I did read about the ones that fitted in for this category, and I just can't remember on top of my head. But it was we're going to working jointly with another organisation. But I'll take that offline with you later.
Okay. There's I'll just let you know what the funding. So altogether, there's £35,000, but that can be split into. Bids will be accepted on 4 categories between £100. So there's £100 up to £1,000, and then £1,000 to £5,000, and then up to £10,000. So we can sort of split it around. There's possibility to have some big projects and lots of smaller ones. So it's spread evenly around the ward.
Yeah.
Maybe street parties, something like that.
Yeah, I think I was looking at the 5,000 category one.
Yeah, it all depends what the initiative is, and then see what is appropriate for the proposals.
Is it £35,000 the total amount?
That's the total amount. So it's going to be split into possibly, well, it hasn't been decided how it's going to be split, but there's the possibility of having some big projects, possibly a couple of bigger projects, then some medium-sized projects, and then some smaller projects. So maybe a mix of all of those instead of having just big projects.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Paul, you wanting to ask a question?
I've got a couple of questions, but I was just going to ask Khalid, what kind of stuff do you do? I'm just thinking of the collaboration thing. I think it's a brilliant idea, but what kind of stuff does yourself and your organisations do?
Yeah, we're actually a two-fold organisation. We do education, and then we do community and outreach. And I think for this criteria, it's more the community outreach part. But at the moment, we're doing a lot of COVID-19 projects, over 50s, healthy living, cookery, and that kind of stuff. Also, how to use IT for the elderly that are over 50. Obviously, restricted with Corona, there's a lot that we had going on, and it kind of stopped for a bit. But we haven't stopped, to be honest with you. Our COVID-19 food packs has just gone through the roof. Yeah, so that's kind of overview of what we do on a high level. But we're always open to ideas. We're kind of community led, so it's whatever the need is in the community, to be honest.
Cool. I think one of the things that hasn't happened for a couple of years, but was the Hodge Carnival, which was at St Margaret's Rec. So I don't know where the boundaries sit now with the new ward, whether that's just outside or whether that's still in the
ward end ward. So yeah, actually in the ward.
Is there a possibility to do collaboration across wards?
There is a possibility. So that depends on the councillor in ward end if there is collaboration. So that's something that can be discussed. So all ideas are on the table, and then we can see what we want further down the line. So it's just brainstorming ideas at this point and seeing what people want, basically.
Sorry, Paul. Where are you based, and what do you do?
So we're in the Bromford at the hub.
Oh, okay.
So involved in a couple of things. So Furs and Bromford Neighbours Together, which is like the local neighbourhood partnership. Yeah. So community events and lots of activities. And I work for Open Door, so we do similar to yourselves, really. So
I've spoken to Lucy, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have spoken to.
So Lucy was hoping to join tonight, but and Lucy also has a Hodge Arts.
Lucy has joined the meeting.
Oh, Lucy can.
Hi, Lucy.
There you go. So Lucy's also got a Hodge Arts hat on as well. So I think lots of ways we could collaborate across. I think one of the things I was wondering, I think there'd be lots of things that would be great in the pockets of the ward, but it would be good to think of at least one thing that brings us all together, because I think it's one thing we don't. I think it's one thing we don't necessarily do is come together as a whole ward. So location would be an interesting question, but something that, whether there's the common or somewhere where we could come together.
Possibly the common, that's a central location in the ward. Maybe one big event and lots of smaller events and different projects. It it's just getting the thinking caps on and putting the ideas out there and seeing what people want, basically. Councillor Ajit.
Yes. Hi everyone. Sorry I'm late. I'm just like kind of homeless because I'm in between 3 houses at the moment. So when I'm on the road, I can't actually log on to anything because otherwise I'll get in trouble. But fantastic to see a number of our local organisations present here today. And just a couple of things that, I mean, I've not had much chance to speak to Diane, but I have been speaking to Councillor Cllr from Ward End, and two of the ideas that have already come forward to us, but we still need to speak to the relevant people so we can have that discussion today and at a later date. One is the Hodge Carnival, which I think Paul mentioned already. Prior to being held at St Margaret's Rec, I did help Stuart. Stuart, I guess, actually need to declare an interest. He's actually an old school friend of mine. We've both attended Handsworth Grammar, and the initial carnival was held at Colborne Primary. And given that it's arranged by people from within the ward, I don't see any reason why, whether we hold it at St Margaret's Rec or whether we hold it at Colborne Primary or somewhere else, we can't actually hold that. I'm in full agreement there should be at least one larger festival that brings in the different communities. The other one that's been mentioned to me by Councillor Cllr is the Ward End Mega Mela. They have an event every year, and I remember the 1 year, 2 years ago, we were blessed to have both the Hodge Carnival and the Mela within like 3 weeks of each other, and that was fantastic. I think that was the best show we've ever had cross border between Bromford and Hodge and Ward End. So again, I'm hoping, we can't really say much because we are in purdah period, which is the period that we have just before an election. So we can't really say much in terms of what we're going to do. But what I really want today, and the chair wants this as well, is for all organisations. I think Khalid mentioned it. If you can all speak to one another, where we could arrange something really big, which brings all the community organisations, and on top of that, have pocket events everywhere, similar to pocket parks, have pocket events around the Bromford, around Hodge and parts of Ward End. And one of the discussions that councils we will need to have is, obviously there's Alum Rock Ward as well. They've got half of Ward End Park. If you know Ward End Park up to the bridge falls within the Alum Rock Ward, and the part on the bridge which is adjacent to Washcreath Road, that falls in the Ward End. But lots of people from Hodge Hill, Bromford and Hodge also use Ward End Park, same with St Margaret's Rec. St Margaret Rec is on the border, it's actually within Ward End, but across the road, Bromford Lane is the boundary between the two wards. So lots of people from Bromford and Hodge also use St Margaret's Park, St Margaret's Rec, and because Bromford Drive Park is redundant at the moment, clearly a lot of our people are going into Ward End. So it makes sense to have the collaboration, but if it's up to you guys to put, we can't put in the bids for you. All we can do is just guide you. It's up to you to come up with the ideas, come up with the initiatives that you want to do. And I know, Paul, you do a lot of street surveys anyway, and part of your street surveys could be asking people if, say, I don't know, just Folkestone Croft, just come out top of my head, if they would just want to hold a mini street party, I don't see that there's anything wrong with that. It's something I would fully support. But we have only got £35,000. But I know with this, if you apply for some funding, then you can try to get some match funding from other organisations, not just the City Council. And that's something that we would be helping you with. Okay.
Okay, that sounds like a good way forward. It's just to look at what people want, what sort of activities they want, get children involved, maybe lots of dressing up costumes, representing the Commonwealth, maybe bunting around the ward. There's lots of possibilities out there. Lucy, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, sorry for again coming in late.
Okay.
When does the funding begin? Can I just check what timescales we're on?
Funding begins. There's two tranches of funding. The first funding, the applications are to be submitted by the 1st of June, and then they need to come to the ward forum in between July and September for approval by the people at the ward forum, and then the project should commence October this year for the first tranche, and then the second tranche applications are to be in by January, beginning of January, and projects to commence in April, but they need to be submitted to the ward forum between February and March. But no, all funding needs to be used by this. I haven't got the date here, but I think it's before the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
And no funding can be carried forward, so it all needs to be used up. Otherwise, we lose it. So it's, yeah, use it or lose it, basically.
So I suppose all I wanted to say really was just like where my head is at the moment. I'm sure everyone's pretty much the same working on the grant in communities. I just feel like a sort of obviously the Commonwealth is what it is. La la la, or singing or dancing. But I just feel like, from my perspective and lots of other people working on the ground, like I feel like we're in a recovery phase now, and that recovery phase will take a long time to sort of get people back in so many different ways, emotionally, psychologically, socially, and so lots of little gentle activities over a long period of time feels like the right thing for the community at the moment. I'm not saying that will feel the same for 6 months.
I think in the first instance, it's more about getting the ward Commonwealth Games ready, so more preparing the streets, and so more outdoor events around maybe planting flowers and different things like that. Trees, etc. And then the next phase maybe more of celebrations.
Yeah.
We've got to be mindful of the current restrictions as well. So I do think as councillors we need to have a conversation with the leadership, because we can't ask community groups to bid for funding for various activities where their hands are tied, especially coming in October, because we don't know if we're going to be out of the restrictions fully. There is a roadmap for mid-June, but I think it would be grossly unfair. And October, the weather is not brilliant, is it? So I would imagine most of these activities are going to be outdoor activities as well. So it's.
I mean, they are taking into consideration COVID and everything, so it won't be written in stone. And you know, if COVID impacts, then the dates will be shifted. So. But we need a starting point, basically, somewhere to work from and to aim towards. And then if things don't go as well as planned, then dates will be moved.
Yeah, Pat's just put in the chat that funding committee, the activities no later than August 2022. That's ample time then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just about crosses over the Commonwealth. And to have the big, large events that I think all of us are in agreement with, they would probably take place June, July next year.
Yeah,
so
July.
I think this works out well. Then I remember, Paul, you did a really good event on the green towards the bottom of Bromford Drive, where you had like sort of like wet games and stuff, and lots of water. Again, if restrictions are lifted, that's something that I'm sure could be funded from this tranche of funding, and that would be brilliant to bring the communities together. Remember, the Commonwealth, we're blessed in Bromford and Hodge. We've got people from the Commonwealth, you know, places like Nigeria. We've got people from Nigeria here, Somalia here, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh. They're all here. Paul's raised his hand. Someone raised their hand. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think we briefly mentioned this. I think, bearing in mind what Lucy had said, like I think we're slightly tentative at the moment to put too many plans in place because of the restrictions. But I do think hopefully by June, July, August 2022, we'll be in a much better position. I think one of my wonderings is, I think big events and little events would be brilliant. I think what would be really good to think about is what you've just said, Majid. How do we draw out the Commonwealth stories? And that may be what we do to start off with. How do we build towards celebrating the heritage and the histories and the stories, you know, mapping out the Commonwealth in our ward, linking into some of those, and some of them will be really small. I mean, there used to be a Nigerian community group in Furs and Bromford. I'm not sure if it still exists, but I know they used to always love to celebrate Nigerian Independence Day. I know Jamaican Independence Day is another big celebration. So is there things that we can look at, a calendar of events that really could draw out the members of the Commonwealth in our ward?
could be a series of plays or things around that, stories, even online events. If we're in that, still in the same position.
Diane, can I just say,
Alex, yeah.
Going forward, I think it would be ideal if, obviously, you've got all the names for all the organisations, to send everybody an email with everyone's contact details. Because if we are to do a bid, one big bid for the whole Hodge community, then there must be a criteria for there's a lead organisation that gets all the funding, and then the funding gets allocated to different organisations and what have you. So I think as one suggestion, taking away from the meeting, is if we are going to do something in collaboration, we need to have each other's details, because otherwise we won't know how to work.
I'll pass everyone's details around if you're all
If you
in.
do that, then I think we can touch base with each other, the ones who are really interested, and then
no one objects to that, do they? On the grounds of GDPR, etc. So I've got no objections there, so I can pass that around.
Okay, that'd be good.
Nosheen, I've got a hand up here. Nosheen, would you like to come in?
Hi everyone. Sorry, I joined late, so I missed quite a big section of it. So I just heard Khalid say that you have the details of all the organisations. So did everybody here give the names of their organisations, or did I miss that part?
Well, if everybody emails me with the contact details that they want to use, and then I can share them between all those contacts.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So I think you've all got my email address. Yeah. So if you all email me the contact details that you want to use for this project, and then I'll pass that around to all the contacts. Okay.
We can add in the various PTA groups in the schools as well around the Bromford and Hodge, because obviously Stuart was instrumental in the carnival, so you would need to speak to Stuart as well.
All right. So Stuart, yes.
I think we've got Mohammed Ishaq here as well, who was one of the organisers of the Warden Mega Miller.
Yeah, I was just waiting for everybody to have their little. Can I?
Yes, you're welcome. Come in, Mohammed.
Okay, right. Good evening, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.
Good evening.
Basically, what it is, we're doing the Mega Miller hopefully next year. It hasn't happened for last year and this year because of COVID, naturally. A lot of what we do is cultural and sport, and as we use the park extensively, there are other areas of the park we can use. Along with parts of buildings, we can facilitate a lot of other groups working in collaboration and partnership to do that main event. However, we're happy to kind of work with people coming up to the events, to do smaller events, to kind of almost like what was said earlier on, warming it up as you get there. You know, what you've mentioned earlier on, just before I've come in, is around kind of the Commonwealth and how you record it. There are certain kind of programs that have been done previously, and what we could do is do an audio visual, invite people to book a slot and just sit in front of a camera with microphones to talk about, you know, how did I come to this country? Why did I come to this country? Where have I lived, and where am I at this moment in time? And just leave an audiovisual record, which we could talk to the library service to actually keep it on archive. Or we could do things like warming things up, doing it with individuals beforehand, and then kind of culminating in kind of like at the main event, just kind of like recognizing the work that's been done.
Sounds like an excellent idea.
I'm kind of looking at putting a bid in from the Mega Miller, because we're operating over the weekend, which it will be before the Commonwealth Games, hopefully, fingers crossed, and looking at what we're doing on that programme, which would follow the kind of well-seasoned program that we've run, which is having sports, etc. on the one day, having kind of live stage. We have the fun fair. We have all these other kind of like stalls, food and non-food, but also lots of information and signposting stalls, which will be there, safety, kind of health, food, all that kind of thing. So we're happy to, have people there. They can book a stall, have their presence there. We can put that on our Bromford paraphernalia for people to benefit from who are coming there, or they can signpost it to say, these are our kind of like little awareness events, and our kind of like stall will be at that event as well when you come there.
That's excellent. So what we could do, we can advertise this. Well, we need to get the message across all of the wards and get people that are willing to contribute their stories.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, there is the White House. There is kind of, I think some of the offices are still empty there. We could just put a screen in and have some volunteers with some audio-visual equipment, just literally just collecting everything and compiling it together. That could be a record of the wards, the people who live there. You could do things like have Google Maps and pinpoint where certain people live in the ward, and then kind of have a line running back to where they lived before they came to England. So, you could look at where all the kind of influxes come from and where it's concentrated.
Possibly have a screen at the events where it could be.
I think it should be used as a resource by the library service, and I think it's really good for resources for schools as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Going forward after the games, it's there for perpetuity. It's a legacy. Also, yeah, but it's something that could be shown at events, maybe on a big screen, and it's just running on a loop, so people who are coming to the event can see it.
Well, I think it'd be really good. I think also elected members, would raise their awareness as what kind of people they have on the patch who they may not have known already, and then for them to recognise, look, actually I represent this very broad range of people within my ward.
Absolutely. So it'd be interesting to see how many different Commonwealth, how many people in our ward and other wards have members from the Commonwealth countries.
And
sure
then you could,
that we are aware of.
Yeah, and then look at from that is to then farm it out to schools for them to do projects in it, and then feedback in the following year kind of thing. And then also work with people like Cllr and the other gentlemen from Furs and Bromford who are on the ground. They'll then raise their awareness of what's actually there on their patch.
I've just got a note here from Pat saying unconstituted and grassroots community groups can apply to the fund also to support activities.
Yeah, I've heard something about if you get the funding, you have to spend it with people who are suppliers and contractors who are approved by Find It in Birmingham.
I'm not sure about that, but I'll send out all the legal information, all the information on it, and then.
Yeah. But I'm happy to kind of join in with any of the meetings that people want to plan, and maybe each of us can benefit from each other.
Yeah, I'll add you to the email list, and then we can sort of convene more meetings in the future and carry on the discussion.
That's great.
Okay. All right, anyone else wishing to contribute? I've got another hand up here. Is that Nasheen?
Yeah.
Nasheen?
Just off the back of what Isaac was just saying there. So I know of this organisation that has been working for quite a while, completely self-funded, have been doing research into and documenting how the early communities that came over from like Pakistan and the subcontinent kind of communicated with their families back home. So it's called tape letters. So how they used to kind of record messages on cassettes and send them back to their families, because a lot of them were illiterate and things like that, weren't able to write. So I think if we got somebody like that on board, because they've already collated a lot of information from across communities across England, I think if we could kind of have an exhibition of something like that, similar to what was just said, I think that could be quite beneficial.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. If you've got the contacts machine, yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
I can
excellent. And then we can all feed into this.
Perfect.
To this project. Right.
It would be good if we could get some of the, like, we've got boxing happening in Bromford. We've got a couple of gyms across Bromford and Hodge and Warden. If we can have some form of competition as well, especially for the youngsters, just like nothing serious, but just a bit of fun and get them into training, because the idea of this is to set a legacy. And if we can get some people into boxing or into keep fit, or, you know, we've got, I was approached by the gym owner on, I think it's Cllr or Twyford Road. He does Thai boxing and MMA and all these kind of weird and wonderful sports, which I'm too old and they're like not tough enough to be involved in anymore. But it would be good to encourage others to get involved, and like we could have the next future world boxing champion here from the Bromford and Hodge. It's something I think we should encourage, and if we can lay on, like it could even involve, I know we did this a number of years back when we had a community first project running, where if you're a child in Bromford and Hodge, that we basically pay for your gym membership for a few months. I'm not sure whether that's something feasible, but if they're training towards a competition which will be run as part of the legacy funding, I think that would be something pretty good.
That would be a great idea, and you know, if everyone's in agreement, I'm sure that could happen.
Yeah. Could I quickly jump in there?
Yes.
So Majid, you know SMBF, we've run youth clubs before in the summer, and we do mentoring schemes and things like that. So we could definitely help facilitate something like that if it was working with the youth, for sure, because we have teachers and things on board as well. So that's definitely something that we could help with.
Brilliant.
I'll just answer Paul's question, and I'll take Mohammed. Yes, Paul. Tina has been in touch. She did want to attend this evening, but she couldn't make it. But she's aware of what's happening, and I'm sure she'll have some input into the projects. Okay, Mohammed. Yeah, would you like to come in? You might. Can you turn your mic on, Mohammed? You're on mute.
Is that on now?
That's on now. Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent. Councillor Majid was at our first Mega Miller, where we had a demonstration of weightlifting, judo, karate, etc., with some clubs from the area represented. So we're more than happy. We have quite a large arena for that kind of thing. So boxing, martial arts, five-a-side football, you name it, we can kind of like facilitate it.
Excellent. That's good to know. Right. So, well, we've got the bones of, we've got a framework now to work on, and what we need to do now is take it wider out into the community and see what residents want, and sort of collate the stories as well for the projects.
It might be worth having a conversation with Councillor Mohammed Iklak as well aboard it. Yeah. See if we can have the next meeting, depending on the bids that are coming through. If there is joint collaboration, to see if we can hold a joint meeting going forward. Because if we are looking at St Margaret's Wreck or Warden Park, then we do need Warden on.
Yeah, I think that needs to happen sooner rather than later, so we can sort of agree what funding goes where, basically. And the
other thing we can do as councillors, we can ensure that when we do get bids coming through, if people let us know, then we can hold the requisite ward forum as well, even if it's at short notice. We need to give 7 days notice to the officers, because it does have to go through a ward forum for the bid to be agreed. But I like the idea of having lots of smaller events leading up to some larger events. I think that would go down really well.
Yeah, I've got something in the chat from here from Zahid Hussain, and he said, I like the idea of sports, maybe trials of different types. So try boxing for a week, cricket, and then give some feedback via video on their experience. So,
we've got lots of sporting teams, like football teams across Bromford and Hodge and Warden. We've got volleyball teams, we've got badminton teams. There's so much we can bring forward. I don't think 35,000 is enough, Chair. Do you reckon we could ask for some more funding?
well, if we can get some, if there's an organisation that could get some match funding, maybe then we could put on a tournament of some sort that goes across different wards.
Yeah, that would work.
That's a possibility. Hold on, someone's, is this, Lucy, you've got your hand up. Hi. I think you're mute.
Still mute. Oh, there we go.
That's it.
Just to say, from Hodge Hill Arts Forum perspective, we've been involved in 2 sort of micro projects so far, doing sort of feasibility studies for projects for the Commonwealth Games. One in Glebe Farm Rec, but on the sort of Coal Valley. So trying to doing some work on connecting the 2 communities over the river, which has been quite fun. And another one based at Warden Library, which would link up really well with anything around Warden Park. We're just coming to the end of those 2 studies, those 2 projects. But there are some really lovely ideas that have come out of those, which probably a bit early to share now, but some of them have been mentioned already. But yeah, I'll feedback once those are kind of completed. But what was lovely about those things is that we were really focusing on a sort of micro community and really benefiting. I mean, like Majid's suggestion, like if folks in Croft want to do a street party, fantastic. Like to really, really embed, really support the community, like micro community. So again, lots of little pop-up things that maybe happen in unison with each other, sort of in parallel with each other, but that maybe draw into something bigger. I'm just thinking of what would most benefit people, especially after this time where our sort of next door and nearest neighbours have become more important. We don't want to lose that. So something that rebuilds on that at a time when we now can get on the bus or jump on the car or jump on a train and go miles away again, like let's sort of keep it hyper local. So not to say not to work, so definitely to work cross wards on the bigger stuff, but to not lose focus on the
that's maybe where the micro funding comes in, because there's micro funding as well. Maybe to have smaller projects, or maybe some little competitions in each street, or a small area that can sort of feed into bigger events and presentations. Mainly for children, I'm guessing here at this stage. Let me just read. Allocation, Pat's just come in here. Allocations have been distributed as fair as possible to all wards. Some wards have received less than 11,000. So Hodge Hill, we're doing pretty well with 35,000.
Yeah, we based it on the social deprivation levels, and in particular Bromford did bring us into the quite high category. So I think Bromford, Hodge Hill, Warden, Alum Rock, Smallheath, Chardin, we all received quite high allocations.
Yeah.
So places like Edgbaston, Sutton, they never got as much as we got.
Plus
we did quite well.
Two-member ward, we get a bigger amount, and then the 1-member wards get a smaller amount.
No, I would be gutted if this time next year we're sitting and we never, use the whole allocation that we've been given, because it'd be very disappointing. So all of you need to get your thinking hats on. Yeah. We need to get more residents as well on board, because if unconstituted groups are also able to take some funding, I think that would, if like a street wants to do something, we just help them. We can do it for them quite easily. It doesn't mean we can get people's alleyways and accessways cleaned and give them gates. This isn't for that, because I always get a barrage of questions around that. Whenever any funding is allocated, people want the alleyways cleared.
No, this is for celebrating the Commonwealth Games and more about well-being.
But you could have a street party where you're clearing the alleyway with different neighbours.
Well, you would have to clear the area to make it nice and clean for the street party. So there's always that. So Hussein is coming again here. He's got suggested awards, Dragon's Den or apprentice type challenges, perhaps.
But that would happen anyway, wouldn't it, at the ward forum, because they would have to come to us with the bid anyway.
So everybody's got to put their presentations forward, so it'll be what the consensus of the meeting agrees.
I think Paul's raised his hand, Chair.
Paul, yeah.
There's a valid point behind what I'm going to say, but there's a slightly tongue-in-cheek comment that all the areas you've just named aren't places where the games are actually happening. So I think it's an interesting thing about like where the actual, so Perry Bar and places is where the actual games is taking place. So I suppose the valid question, to turn that into a question, is there anything that the games is offering in relation to access to the events, access to what's happening, access to the athletes themselves? Is there stuff that we can plug into? For example, if there's a boxing competition, is there tickets to the boxing events or something, or meet and greet with some of the boxers? Is there things that can be organised that actually plugs us into the games a bit more, makes us feel like we're part of the games ourselves?
That's a good question. That's something that has been brought up in meetings with the leadership. The difficulty we've got currently is because we still don't know the format of the games because of COVID-19. Because like just yesterday, it was like India's on the red list from Friday, and that 250,000 people infected with COVID-19 just yesterday. Now, if some of the developing countries in the Commonwealth aren't able to vaccinate their populations in time for next year, we're not even sure. I'm not saying this, so I don't want anyone to quote me on this. If there are going to be spectators permitted to come over, because if you're having to go into a hotel for 10 days now from parts of the Commonwealth, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh now, Nigeria's there, Somalia's there, and if that continues, then clearly they're not going to be able to come to watch the games. But it's something that we did push for from the initial stage, because I remember I was in Cabinet then, where I said that what we should be doing is offering tickets, because what we don't want to see is an empty games as well. So give tickets to school kids all around the city, not just Perry Bar. Allow them to meet athletes, have some sort of forum where they can meet athletes. I know there's some, I think it's basketball, street basketball, that's going to happen on Victoria Square, just outside the Council House building. So there'll be opportunities there. But this has to be, we were sold the Commonwealth Games because remember Birmingham came in because nobody else wanted it. Let's be honest, no other city was prepared because we were thinking of bidding for 2026. We had some of the infrastructure already in place. So it was there. So it's there for the children. So I'm going to push really hard that children do get free access. Nobody should be denied access to the games because they can't afford to pay the prices. I remember having a conversation with a cabinet member a few weeks back, and he says to me, "Oh, we'll let you come to watch the bowls." I says, "Don't really want to watch the bowls. I want to watch something like the cricket, because you've got women's cricket at Edgbaston as well." And it all depends. It all depends how it pans out with the current sort of like worldwide pandemic. But that is something that needs to be at the forefront, because we have to, if we're not going to take the people to the games, if Bromford Hodge kids aren't going to the games, we need to bring the games to Bromford and Hodge Hill. One of those ways would be to make sure that they do have access at all times. Something that we'll know, we can send an email, Chair, after this meeting to say that that's been requested by residents as well and groups in Bromford and Hodge Hill. It's all fair giving us £35,000, but kids really want to have access to the games.
Good point. We don't realise how far ahead we are with our vaccination programme and how far behind other countries are. So it's a difficult situation to envisage where we'll be next year. Hopefully they'll catch up with our progress. But I'll send the email and request that goes access to the games for children in our wards and the neighbouring wards as well.
And I mean, Lucy's got an example of taking kids and families to the theatre. It's been hugely successful through the Hodge Arts Forum, accessibility to the Hippodrome and the Birmingham Rep. And with a little bit of work, a lot of people were accessing those things and giving people that chance to go. And it doesn't necessarily have to be free. It could be reduced price tickets, but I think the accessibility of the games is going to be, I think, a big, especially if overseas visitors can't come. It's a no-brainer, really, isn't it? To fill the stadiums with local people is just a bit of a no-brainer, really. I'm with you though, Majid. I'm not interested in the bowl so much. And the other thing I was going to mention that was a few years ago now, but youngsters still talk about it. We did a brilliant It's a Knockout on St Margaret's Rec, and it was about 8 years ago now.
That's what I was referring to.
But what it was reliant on, and I think there was loads of money in play schemes. So I know we worked with Rashta, and they had a play scheme. We had a play scheme on the Bromford. I think it was all of the Hodge constituency, and Sharon Thompson, that's how long ago it was, she led on it when she was working for the council, and we put together a jigsaw. So it was the 4 representatives from the 4 parts of the constituency, and we all came together. But each of us, I remember our play scheme was given 2 countries. So I think I can't remember what they were now, but we had to do a whole program where we had to learn about the countries, we had to design costumes, and then on the day, I think it was that Algeria was the one, and then Spain, and we had a massive It's a Knockout on St Margaret's Rec. But people still remember that, and I think it was the 2 elements to it. It was the build up, and it was the learning about the countries, learning about the cultures, sharing the stories, and then it was the actual event itself. So maybe something like that, like our own mini Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, mini Commonwealth Games with the costumes and theme strips of each country, replicating each country's strip, and then a prize prize for the winners. Pat White has come in. The point made. Contact Games Policy and Legacy Team for Commonwealth for the Birmingham 22 Commonwealth Games online, BCC. Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to come in? No. Okay, so there's a lot there for debating. A lot of ideas shared. So we just need to do some collaborative work. So I'll share all the details, everyone's details, and then we can, feed into this and make a bigger project and arrange some more meetings as soon as possible when we've got some ideas on paper that we can come back with. I've got a hand here. Lucy?
I can't type fast enough, so I might as well just say it before you end the meeting quick. I was just going to say, I really love the idea of the It's a Knockout thing. So thinking, like Paul says, Madgen's mentioned it, so it obviously was a striking event. But if people are still talking about that this long, so I think after the games, especially if not many young people or people of all ages from Birmingham do get tickets, to have events going on which feel like an alternative games, or for young kids 10, 15 years, 20 in the future, they will think that was the games, which is quite cool. Like if you could recreate something which feels like the mini games but make it really special and fun and creative, and like embedded in the community, not having to travel out too far. I really like that idea. So I'm used to being on Zoom where I can just do a thumbs up, and I can't find a thumbs up. So
okay, and it can all be recorded and kept for perpetuity, and there's something to look back at. So if you, as you say, that was 8 years ago, people are still remembering it, then it's definitely worth replicating.
Yeah, you could put a penguin in the chat though, Lucy. I always do that.
A penguin.
There, look, dancing penguin. When you're happy. I would say, like, we've got the Hodge Carnival. You can easily call that Hodge Commonwealth Carnival. Got the Warden Mega Mail. You can call that Warden Commonwealth Games, mini Commonwealth Games. You can do stuff like that. But it's a good conversation today, I think, and I think with all our different groups, then people can start having their own conversations, and this will go out to residents as well, and let people come forward with their ideas as well. Was this? Everyone's putting emojis in the chat
composition there.
I genuinely don't know how to do it, and I'm feeling really left out right now.
Where it says type a message, look underneath where the smiley face is.
I've just put in the polar bear. I'm still not convinced it's the polar bear. Someone else.
No, it doesn't look like a polar bear at all.
Someone's got a ninja in there. Can we get back to the agenda, Chair, please?
Okay. Right, we're all in a festive mood. We're getting carried away with the games.
40 minutes, I can eat again.
Dancing. Yeah, just to remind everyone, it's being live recorded.
It shows it's the councillors and the residents, the community groups got on really well. Bromford and Hodge.
Yeah. It's being recorded. Is someone taking minutes? I'm not taking minutes as such, but I'm making a few notes, points that we need to follow up.
Yeah, but it's been recorded, isn't it? So you can.
Yeah. There's some a lot of the recordings there, but I've just made some bullet points of things that we need to action before the next meeting. So if anybody would.
Can we have a copy of the slides, please?
Yes, certainly. I'll get those circulated.
Thank you.
With the next communication that we send out. Pat's typing something. I'll just wait for Patches. So the slides are in the chat at the beginning of the meeting. If you want to just scroll back up to the chat, you can download the slides. Otherwise, I'll get them circulated to you. Okay. Right. Well, I don't think I've got no more comments. But and Beverly said she'll send them out. Okay. Thanks, Bev. That's great. Well, thank you everyone for coming along. Some fantastic ideas. I'm sure we're going to have some fantastic events coming out of this, and some memorable events and our own Commonwealth Games. All right. Well, thank you everybody, and we'll be in touch, and we both look forward to working with you and in collaborating with the other wards as well, and see what comes out of it. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Bye.